Celebrating 10 years of trailblazing in ground support, Exceed marks a decade as your leading partner in ground support equipment leasing. At the forefront of both short-term and long-term leasing solutions, Exceed adapts to your unique operational needs. Whether you're ramping up for peak season or planning for long-term growth, we provide the right equipment to keep your operations running smoothly. This anniversary, we renew our dedication to empowering your ground operations with efficiency and innovation. With Exceed, you're equipped for success today and prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. Exceed, driving excellence on the ground year after year. Explore more at exceedgse.com.
Good morning from Toronto. This is Alice Clark from GHI, and you are listening to the GSE podcast, the day after the gala dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, this session is going to be recorded as a podcast of the GSE podcast, and delighted to welcome up Matt Wheatsall, who's the host of the GSE podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have your attention. Round of applause for Matt, please. So it's a great honour to be recording this next session with Matt, and it will feature as an episode of the podcast. I'm sure everyone out there knows the show and are listening. So thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, thanks a lot. All right, we got, oh man, this is great. Yeah, so thanks a lot for coming. This is going to be a special live edition of the GSE podcast. And thanks to Max and GHI for having me up here. And we're going to talk some electrification.
We are. So keep the language clean, ladies and gents. It's live, so we've got to keep this one straight. But just to say, we do want your questions to come in as we're having the discussion. I'll pick them up on the ad. We'll put the apps, iPad even, and we'll put the question slide up. So send some of your questions in as we're talking. The topic, as Matt says, is sustainability, the electrification of the America's apron. And I will now welcome up the panelists, and we will get things underway. So first up, could I invite Brad Compton, Director of Sales at Textron? Welcome up, Brad.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks a lot.
We have Marty Gray, who is Director of GSE and Maintenance at Air Canada. Welcome up, Marty.
Thanks a lot, Marty.
Next up, could Josh Parkin come back to the stage? He was with us this morning. He's Senior Sales Manager at New Technology Products at Oshkosh Aerotech. Welcome back, Josh.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay. Next up, we have Gabriel Sampson, who is President at Averest. Welcome up, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And next we have David Farias, who is Vice President Fleet North America at Swissport. Welcome up, David. I'd like to welcome up next Erwin Jalil, who is Group Chief Operating Officer at TLD. Erwin, welcome up. And next up, we have Todd Ernst, who is Director of Energy and Environment, Greater Toronto Airports Authority. Welcome up to you. Thank you. Thank you. I believe that is everyone we were expecting. We've got a mixture here of manufacturers. We have an airport. We have a ground handler. We have an airline. So we've got the full gambit of the supply chain to talk to us about this big challenge of becoming more sustainable, electrification, or other greener power sources. Matt, I'll hand to you, or anything else to say, or I'll get things underway.
No, let's get it underway. Yeah,
let's get it underway.
Thank you.
As he flicks through his pages to the first questions that I sent through. So to open it up to the panel, what are your future GSE fleet strategies, and what percentage of your GSE will be electric by the end of the decade?
All right, Brad, you want to go on that?
Brad, you're at the end. We'll
I think Brad looks like
just because I'm down here at the end?
Yeah, we're going to start
Okay.
with you.
So in terms of electrification from a supplier standpoint, manufacturer standpoint, I think everyone has made so much progress when you reference 2019 to now. I think lithium is the key. We, from a manufacturing standpoint, we're about 65% electric this year, and mainly that's on our belt loaders. But I think if you look at every supplier, a lot of the manufacturers, they'll say, I would guess, above 50%. But I think we're going to get a lot heavier on that percentage as we get into the next couple of years here. Infrastructure's got to catch up, but I think the signals we see from our customers are leaning that direction. So, yeah, we're above 50%. I think it's just going to keep growing.
I'll come to David for this question.
Yeah. So on our end, I think right now we're about 22% electric globally. We'd like to get to, by the end of the decade, about 55%. That's our corporate goal. But at the end of the day, infrastructure plays a major role inside of that and how we get to that point. But we've got some good partners here that apparently are trying to make it a little bit smoother of a transition. So,
thank you, Marty. Perhaps could bring you in on this one.
Air Canada, we've made some significant commitments for a 30% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050. So we need to be aggressive on the way we get there. I don't know if I would say, a full percentage of the fleet to be electrified, but rather specific fleet types where we know where it's proven. And we're very, very comfortable with who we've aligned ourselves with for belt loaders, bag tractors. And as we see, evolution in other fleet types, I think we'll probably take advantage of it at that time. But we are fully committed in these climate objectives.
So a lot of desire and commitment to increase electrification.
We're fully committed.
As referenced by David. So it kind of leads to my next question around infrastructure. So who is currently providing the leadership and impetus in electrification of airports in the region? And who would you like to see step up to take a more proactive approach to deliver the electrification and the infrastructure that we need?
I can start with that, I guess. Sure.
Airport, yeah.
So I don't know if there's a single clear leader. I think everybody has started stepping up, really, whether it's the airports, ground handlers, airlines, what have you. The move to electrify has picked up dramatically in recent years, where I think there's a bit of a gap right now, not to have my hat out to the government, but, there's lots of government incentive for ground side electrification. And there's a gap when you start to move airside to non-plated equipment.
So, Marty, is he nodding along as those comments are made by Todd?
I would we need partners in the authorities and certainly some provincial advocates to drive these initiatives for sure. If you look at where we are today, and even if you went back and took a snapshot of where we were this time last year, there were plenty of airports, Canadian airports, that had zero infrastructure. Now if you fast forward to today, they have done a tremendous job in building infrastructure to support what we have taken delivery of. So I think, as the airports progress in infrastructure construction, implementation, it's just kind of aligning itself with the supply chain of equipment. And right now we're in a fortunate position, but we must continue to just keep driving these initiatives with our partners.
And then Gabe, I think that you can maybe help bridge that gap a little bit, right?
Yeah, sure. So we've been supplying charging infrastructure to this industry for 20 years now, and we've definitely seen a change in who's procuring that equipment. I think everybody's right that who's leading that decision kind of varies based on the market, the airport, the location, the airlines. But, 20 years ago, the airlines were buying charging infrastructure and having it installed at their gates at airports to support their electric GSE, whereas now they're definitely leaning more towards trying to get the authorities, the airport authorities or the cities or the states to provide that infrastructure for them, like Marty indicated. So I think it's a joint effort of airline participation and trying to meet their corporate environmental goals. And then the airports trying to support that and also meet maybe some of their own environmental goals. So it's definitely more of a partnership now than it's ever been.
It's great that we have all these aligned targets. If you look at what our mandates are, or between now and 2030, is very, very common for what we're seeing, the airport. So we're all striving for that common goal, which is certainly beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, our GHG goals are actually pretty closely aligned. We're shooting for net zero by 2050, 45% reduction versus 2010 by 2030. That's our scope 1 and 2, but we're looking to support our partners for their scope 3 reductions too.
Thank you. Questions come in from the audience. Thanks for the first question, which are: standardization is critical to adoption success. Do you see a change when manufacturing teams can agree on a single charge plug type, similar to the EV car industry? Not doing this also hampers infrastructure, as multiple vendors at a site may have different plug needs.
I'll certainly say that's very difficult for us now. There's many, many options. It's hard for us to keep track. One customer could have 3 different sets of plugins for the infrastructure per city, so it gets a little difficult. If you can standardize that, that would be super huge from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah, from an Oshkosh perspective, I would agree that we see a lot of variability, not just here in the Americas, but around the world. And we're having to adapt. And of course, that's ultimately what we do. We listen to what the customer needs are. But from a consistency standpoint, it'd help. I know there's a lot of work going on, both in the SAE conference as well as IATA, to try to work and put some suggestions out there so people can standardize some. But there's a lot of work to do on that front for sure.
Oh, and you give us a TLD view.
Just to confirm, I think it's a big driver of complexity today. It's not only the hardware, but also the software. So charger communication protocols that don't speak the same language make essentially the flexibility in the operation extremely difficult to handle. So it is today an issue, and some countries have figured it out. Thinking about China, which is the only place today where you have standards for electrification, and I think the rest of the world needs to move in that direction.
Is that from a Swissport perspective, from a handler's perspective, David? Is that a challenge having multiple plugs on?
It limits our options and where we can repivot equipment. So at the end of the day, without that charger infrastructure aligned and that protocol not in place, that does limit our ability to move equipment around. So yeah, we'd love nothing more than to have some additional alignment there.
That said, there are some solutions that as manufacturers we're working on. So for instance, the ability to recognize different protocols automatically, that's not something overly difficult to do. So and then I think in the US we're seeing a move towards, CCS as a standard plug. So I think there are ways to converge fast without necessarily the regulator imposing new standards on us, but it is going to take us to work collectively on this.
I think the infrastructure is going more high voltage as well. And I think that could be the future of the airport. And that would align more with the automotive industry is what we're seeing. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of standardization.
Thank you. Todd, I'll come to you. We many panels we've held at GHIs, and often there is a comment around frustrations about the infrastructure and the lack of infrastructure for electric charging at airports. Can you give us, an airport's perspective on this and just some of the scope of the challenge and trying to map to demand amongst your stakeholders?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. How much time do I have?
49 minutes, 21 seconds. No, please.
Look, we're all working towards the same thing at the end of the day. Like we all have our own carbon reduction targets. We're all looking to move people, planes, and bags as efficiently as we possibly can. Toronto Pearson, well before my time, I think it might be about 20 years ago when we put the first GSE chargers airside. And we've got about 80 or so and quickly building out to just over 100. And then it's going to expand by a couple of times at least going forward from there. So
keep going.
Although the activity curve is smooth and steady, but the curve for infrastructure is like a sawtooth, right? Mm-hmm. You build stuff and sometimes you overbuild like we did many years ago. And then you get into a point where you're at a plateau and you're under the curve for a while. So that's really the challenge with infrastructure is you can't scale it up, generally speaking, as smoothly as the activity ramps up. So we need to work closely together to understand the timings and be able to match the supply with demand as efficiently as we possibly can.
And inevitably there'll be a lag, I guess, between the supply and the demand.
Yeah, there'll be some lags, but there are some tools also to help to address lags. For instance, portable charging solutions, battery technologies, and whatnot that are out there to help bridge that gap. So I don't think all is lost. We'll be able to keep up. It just won't be all with fixed static electrical infrastructure.
Perhaps if I can come to you, Gabe, if battery technology can help play a part whilst the infrastructure is catching up, I'd be interested to get your views on what's out there and sort of developments and innovation in the battery technology arena.
Yeah, sure. So specifically in reference to chargers, so there's a lot of work underway to add batteries to charging systems that can help shed the load, even out the duty cycle from the facility's point of view. Mobile charging platforms, that might have onboard battery storage that could be charged up in off-peak times and then parked remotely to recharge GSE at a different time of the day. So I think there's a lot of effort underway right now. I think within months, certainly within a year, you're going to start to see a lot of those products roll out. I think from an airport facility perspective, I would assume you guys and a lot of other airports are looking at building battery storage systems into the building that can then, store energy that can be redistributed to electric GSE or EVs anywhere else. You add solar panels to that, you can start harnessing energy from the sun. So the same battery technology that's powering the vehicles is also being looked at to help solve the infrastructure problem we all have and we all deal with every day.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, it's not, the energy challenge isn't just ground support equipment electrification. Mm-hmm. So, in the case of Toronto Pearson, we're already in a grid constrained area. Peak demand is around about 40 megawatts or so. With electrification and facility growth and increases in air traffic over the coming years, that demand is going to more than double. So we're going to get to more like 80, 100 megawatts of demand in a constrained area with infrastructure that we're in the process of upgrading. But we do need to take an energy ecosystem approach where we are looking at how solar, how battery, how even hydrogen and other alternatives to electrons can all fit together to make this work efficiently.
We're talking about electric and you uttered the H word, the hydrogen word for the first time, but I'd just be interested to throw open, if there is this lag, this challenge around infrastructure, what opportunities do the panel think there are for other alternative sustainable fuel sources, hydrogen, biofuels? Be interested to get some views. Josh, you caught my eye at the wrong minute.
Yeah, sure. So Oshkosh certainly isn't new to the electrification game. We've had electric GSE since the 1960s with our Electro product, and we've seen that expansion. And we have experimented with some other zero emission solutions, hydrogen included. It's definitely come a long ways from our perspective. We're very comfortable with the hydrogen fuel cell technology, very safe, very reliable. But I think as the point that Max is making, just like electric, the challenge will be in terms of infrastructure distribution. The approach that we've taken is looking at it from a modular perspective and similar to maybe your propane grill at home. Instead of, you just replace the modular tank. And so we're going to be partnering with a company for modular distribution of hydrogen to bring hydrogen to the operations to simplify that and hopefully accelerate the ability to look at some alternative energy in addition to electric, but to have hydrogen as well. So that'll be an option that we're exploring in GSE, but also in our mobile charging platform, the Amp Cart.
Owen, how much of a proportion do you think hydrogen will make up of TLD's proposition in years to come?
It's hard to say. I think hydrogen will depend a lot on clean, affordable infrastructure being available locally at the airport. And, that's going to be mostly country bets. Maybe Saudi, for instance, will be one of those places in the world. But to complement this hydrogen alternative, one of the things we've introduced is hybrid technologies, which allow essentially to decouple the phasing of this infrastructure that we were talking about, which may be lagging, to the CapEx decisions that you need to make today to replace aging fleets, and essentially buys you some time, still making an impact on your carbon footprint, fuel efficiency, safety in the approach of the aircraft, while giving you the time you need in order to get the chargers in place. So there's different ways to address that challenge today, and that's just one of them.
Brad, from a Textron perspective?
Yeah, I think, electrification is probably the most popular. They're the rock star right now, and hydrogen's kind of looking around the corner, peeking its way in a little bit. I know there's going to be challenges around that infrastructure as well. But we're always looking for the next best thing, but we can't do it in a vacuum. We've got to get the feedback from our customers, from the ecosystem that we live in, the airports included. But yeah, I think we're in that fast lane on electrification, and we know there's going to be something next, and that could be hydrogen. That could go kind of fall back on hybrid vehicles. So certainly, yeah. And we're just looking at, all vehicles, not necessarily talking tractors or belt loaders. You got to take that next step into the de-icing and these other vehicles that you can electrify. So yeah, I would say that there's going to be another one. We just make sure we master the electrification first.
Question that's come in that asks, are lithium batteries just a stepping stone because you have environmental challenges, the sustainability of getting hold of the lithium and then recycling it? So is the lithium battery and electrification as sustainable as we might think?
You've got different chemistries. So I think, generally speaking, in the GSE world, we tend to use LFP, so lithium phosphate ferrous chemistry, which is much cleaner than the nickel manganese NMC cobalt chemistry. It's also much safer from a thermal behavior standpoint. So I think as long as you avoid the use of nickel and manganese, which are the most doubtful components in terms of the carbon footprint of lithium-ion technology, you're doing pretty well from an environmental standpoint.
Totally agree, by the way. But I mean, to answer the question a little more directly, I would say yes. I think lithium batteries are just a stepping stone. We lived in a world for many, many years where everything was powered by lead acid batteries, right? And that is, by the way, a very, very sustainable product. Lead acid batteries are the most recycled product on the planet. The entire battery can be recycled, down to the lead and the acid and the steel, everything. So, but it's also a very mature product, right? It's been around for, 100 years or so, let's say. But as demand for powering vehicles has increased, the lead acid battery has kind of met its capacity and performance. So lithium has had to step in and fill those roles. It is pretty sustainable. There's still some problems to be solved with full recyclability, but I do believe it's just a stepping stone. There's so much development in battery technology today. You'd be a fool to think that in 10 years, there's not going to be 3 or 4 other different chemistries of batteries that are now attractive to this market and maybe powering different types of vehicles.
That's interesting. And can you enlighten us on some of those alternatives, some of the things that might be a stepping stone too? I mean, I've heard of sodium batteries.
Yeah. Sodium ion batteries is a rapidly improving technology that's going to be readily available in coming years. It's sort of available today. We're certainly testing it in our facility for certain applications, and it has a lot of promise. You hear reference of solid state batteries. You hear reference of lithium batteries with different electrolyte chemistries that can do different things. So we're very small, right? If you look at what we do as a GS industry in terms of the battery world, we're a blip on the map, right? If we all went away and we weren't buying electric GS anymore, the battery industry wouldn't miss us. There's so much bigger opportunities. That's where the development opportunities are going to be focused, and we'll ultimately benefit from that for sure.
Anyone else like to comment on lithium and battery technology in their fleets? No, for your heads go back. No one's going to take that one on. How would the panel like to see the supply chain sharing the cost of investment and adoption of more sustainable GSE to get alignment and to speed the rollout of more sustainable equipment? And can adoption ever be coordinated when you have a supply chain and component parts of the supply chain that are in competition, different airlines, different ground handlers? So how do we align better on sharing some of the cost of implementing new technology from scale?
I think it goes back to what Marty said earlier. I mean, it's the partnership between the airlines and the airports, right? If the airports, and they're already doing it, but if they continue their efforts to provide charging infrastructure, then that makes the justification for an airline to buy electric GSE a no-brainer, right? Now you don't have to invest that cash in chargers, and you can go focus your effort and your funds on buying the vehicle you need to do your job. I think that accelerates the process. Some airports are going even further and, of course, mandating, the airlines buy electric GSE kind of in exchange for them putting in the infrastructure. So that mandate certainly speeds up the process as well.
I'm sorry. I was going to say the cost equation is actually positive, right? So obviously you save tremendously on fuel, and the cost of electricity by and large is net, is a winner. Maintenance. So it's more the CapEx hurdle, in certain situations. And there you've got obviously financing solutions, that you can put in place. So I think it's not so much a cost driven barrier today. It's really more indeed the synchronization, the coordination to make it happen with all stakeholders aligned. But again, all operators will actually win from a cost standpoint going electric. There's no question.
Yeah, just to add, I think, there's other models that could be considered in terms of how, whether it's the airlines or the airports that are monetizing that, with the smart charging technology, you're able to see and recognize the batteries they're charging. So there's the opportunity for selling of power or providing charge as a service and using telemetry type options. So there are kind of different models that can be explored as well to help offset the cost and make it actually a revenue generating opportunity.
Todd.
Yeah, I just put out there that with the expansion phase that we're going into with Pearson Lift, it's actually presented an opportunity for us to do, some of the large scale upgrades to our electrical infrastructure to be able to bring in the EV and EGSE charging to help support our partners. So our objective is by about 2030 that we've got enough charging capacity out there that all of our GSE can be electric. So the support will be there in terms of infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you. A question's come in for you, Matt, which asks, how are leasing companies strategically looking at electric equipment for their customers, and how do you stay ahead of the demand in order for people in order to provide the equipment in a fast manner?
It's a real balance because the industry, as we've been talking about, is really kind of moving at a slower rate than I think we kind of expected due to the constraints at the airport as far as infrastructure. So we are investing heavily into electric equipment. However, we're not going all in. We're not all of our fleet is going to be electric. We're going to buy both internal combustion and electric. So, but we have been doing a lot of the purchasing a lot of electric equipment from a bunch of different manufacturers, just so that way we have stuff so that people can try it and put it into their fleet and test it out. So, yeah, it's been great. So, and then I had a question for I think David. Are you all planning Swissport? Planning on repowering a bunch of current internal combustion, or are you looking to buy and purchase new electric equipment?
So I think it's probably more a cost equation. So we're interested in both solutions at the end of the day, but the price points today on new equipment are very competitive to what it would cost to repower a piece of equipment. We are talking with a couple of manufacturers to see what we can do as far as that repowering goes. But right now, our friends here on stage are very, very competitive in terms of making it a better product if we went with a new unit.
David, can I ask you a follow-up question, sort of ask you what percentage of the fleet in the future do you see hydrogen comprising? Do you have some projections?
We're a bit risk averse, I think, on the Swissport space. So lithium is still something that we're not fully diving into just yet. So from a hydrogen perspective, I'm not sure that we're going to see that in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Wait and see how the market.
Not GSE specific, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning. We do actually have our first hydrogen fill station under construction. It's in late commissioning stages at Toronto Pearson. It's ground side, but we are looking to have a percentage of our fleet. We're starting with 5 hydrogen passenger vehicles. And municipal transits are starting to see and get interested in the potential for hydrogen as a percentage of their fleets. So battery electric is definitely, broadly speaking, the more market ready, the more readily available, and it's great in a lot of applications. There are some applications where hydrogen does a little bit better. I think ultimately it's going to become like gasoline and diesel is what battery electric and hydrogen will eventually be, where high torque, heavy use applications will tend to lean a bit more towards hydrogen. But also encourage folks to consider, over the longer term, as both mature and become more available, to consider the flexibility that alternatives to electrification can provide.
Just throw that back to the manufacturers on the panel. But do you see that, Brad? Do you think that the heavier lifting kit may become more hydrogen based? I
don't think that's somewhat unknown, I would think, for us right now. I mean, we're so heavily focused on making sure we're going to get it right with the lithium in these different charging systems, the different batteries, make sure everything's talking together. But yeah, like I said, it's creeping up there on us, but we'll gauge it at a later point in time.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, just to add in there, Oshkosh's position is we're really power agnostic. We continue to have internal combustion engine options. Most of our fleet have the option for electric. And, as we've started hearing demand for hydrogen, we want to be comfortable with the technology so that when the market is ready, that we have a great solution. And for us, the number one is that we want to have our operators, our owners of our equipment, not have to make compromises as it relates to operating. So if they're going to choose hydrogen, they're going to choose electric or internal combustion. We want it to be able to perform a full shift, not worry about power or running out of energy. And so that's our number one, is to make sure whatever ultimately bring to market to our customers is going to work great for them.
Thank you. Another question from the floor asks, how does the panel feel about a fully electric de-icer from an operative, maintenance and serviceability standpoint? Is it truly feasible?
Yeah. I think 100%. Yes. And we're working on that now on our innovative Safe Aero de-icer. We're going to go that direction, and I think it's 100% accomplishable.
Oshkosh agrees. Yep. We'll be there as well.
And it's already in the market. I believe there are options there. Vestigard? No?
It's kind of like a coming soon for us, yes.
But I think it's definitely is.
But going back to that point is if you just don't jump into the deep end, right? You want to make sure it's vetted out, the technology's there, and you touched on maintenance, training. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll go through a very extensive demo phase, but yeah, it's coming. It's going to come quickly. You got to get there.
Yeah, and we'd love to see it on our side as well. At the end of the day, these smaller pieces, your back tugs, your belt loaders, you can see that the TCO is there. And then those de-icing trucks that you need to work when it comes, the breakdowns on those units today is far too high, and it's probably the liability that's going to go and increase if we can get to that point.
Thank you. I'll move on to next question here, which is how much of an opportunity is there to market the adoption of electric and sustainable GSE during pushback and turnaround to increasingly environmentally aware passengers? Marty, is that something you'd ever look to do as an airline there to sort of promote the fact you're using electric or hydrogen kit during pushback?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's tremendous opportunity, and it's certainly that we are very cognizant too. Is what opportunity would that present? So appropriate branding, electrification, brand identification, so our customers, not only our customers but our employees, see what our commitments are. When it's front and center, it's essentially, in some hubs, it's upwards of 1,000 assets that could have potential opportunity to do just that. Share what our ambitions are and get a lot of employee sentiment, a lot of employee engagement. Absolutely. I think it's a tremendous opportunity and one that you will see us adopting to.
Any other views on that one, David?
Yeah, I mean, from a brand perspective, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to make sure that we're highlighting that to not only our internal customers, but our external customers. It's there. And I think from a corporate social governance piece, it's all the way around. So from government to municipalities and to our manufacturers and friends, everyone wants a piece of this.
Thank you. Another question is coming from the audience, which asks, what's the glycol heating time on your electric de-icers? Specifically.
I'm not ready for that one yet, but
no. How good's your knowledge, Brad?
On that one. Let me just say it's fast. How's that? Yeah. It's going to be really fast.
We're saying fast. Yeah.
It's going to be a rabbit, not a turtle. It's going to go fast.
Yeah, we'll look at the tech spec and get back to you on that one, I think, to get a deeper answer. We've talked about hydrogen, we talked about electric. I'd be interested to get the panel's views on other alternatives they might see. I'm thinking biofuels or anything else you think will be a serious player further down the line?
Yeah, I can just
Todd, I'll start with you closest to me, and then I'll move down to you, Josh.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can just say from the perspective of our own fleet management, we're looking at everything. We're looking at electric. We're looking at hydrogen. We're actually doing our first trials with renewable diesel this summer.
Josh, I think you started.
Yeah, I was just going to mention in terms of biofuels, we certainly are seeing an increase of adoption there. It's a common question that we'll get from our equipment owners as to whether they can run the different biofuels in their engines. And in most cases, the answer is yes, particularly the tier 4 finals for most of our manufacturers with Cummins, Deutz. We're seeing that work successfully. There's some things that we suggest that they do to help with filtering, et cetera. But generally speaking, that's a great option. And we see that adopting more and more around the world.
Marty, do you see sort of biofuels being part of the future?
I do.
Fleet strategy.
I do, and we're certainly aware of it. We're keeping eyes on it. Electrification is certainly keeping us busy, and I think we've made commitment in our people and investment in equipment. There's a significant component of change management, behaviors, ramp. There's a lot of opportunity here, and I think I'm going to lean on the experts at the appropriate time to look at alternative fuels. But it's very, very important for us to get into electrification and to get it right and really maximize what we've set out to do, right? Let's meet our obligations first priority. I just don't want to get, trying to do so many different things that we let opportunities slip by.
Any other comments from the panel on biofuels? No? Brad, you're not sure. I can see by your face. No.
Not an expert on biofuels, but we know we have the options for, some of the value you can bring from different suppliers and these guys on the stage as well as, we still run an awful lot of gasoline engines. The diesels are lagging behind, but we still have demand for diesel as well. You just got to keep up with type 4, type 5, type 6 type deals. But yeah, you got to kind of have it all. But the focus is on electrification.
What's good to know is that there's options being developed in the background, whether it's other industry, transport, mining, so we may not necessarily have them today, but what does tomorrow look like? But again, our focus needs must be to remain just on electrification. But it's always good to know that industry is driving change elsewhere.
Thank you. Another question in from the floor, which asks, do you see challenges with respect to maintenance staff for eGSE? The skills for repairs and troubleshooting become are very different from traditional diesel motor engines. Are manufacturers able to assist with competences for staff? Currently, most feel repair costs are far higher for electric GSE.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And yeah, I think the manufacturers are more than willing to help. And Marty would tell you too, it's a learning curve. I mentioned high voltage. That's a whole different ballgame when you talk about, getting in there and doing some maintenance. So training is key. And we understand that and we're ready for that.
Yeah, from an Oshkosh perspective, that's typically what we see as well, is that there's, when it's a change, when people either have mixed fleets or electric's new to their station, there's a learning curve. But generally speaking, the experience that our customers share is not only the fuel savings and the return on investment they get from that, but they are seeing reduction in their actual total cost of ownership, maintenance, repairs, the improvement around not only battery technology, but on AC, DC motors and the brushless technology in terms of the motors. That's really helped reduce maintenance over time and has not only allowing people to go zero emission, but really helping the bottom line as well. So we see positive aspects of that.
I'd say the industry's probably not been getting too healthy in that regard. There's been a training gap inside of that space, even when you had traditional ICE engines. And now that we're going to electrification, there's still a significant gap, opportunities to be had with the manufacturers providing that training, but also in terms of introducing new vocational programs that can get folks excited to get into this industry. So that's been lagging and great opportunities there.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a challenge as we successfully, hopefully, deploy electric equipment on the ramp over the coming 5 years, is to really upgrade the skill sets. You need much more electrical savvy, skills, sometimes software related skills, which we've had to gain on the OEM side, but are yet to fully, I think, document and establish associated programs. So some of our customers are insisting on this, and I think they're right. We need to do more of that as OEMs. We're determined to do it, and today I think that's going to be a challenge in the next 2-3 years as we see more eGSE come on the ramp.
A question that's come in which asks, what are some of the documented results and customer feedback on the mobile charging units currently used on the ramp?
I'd love to take that one.
Go, Josh. It's yours.
So late last year, Oshkosh released the mobile charging solution, which is called the Amp Cart. That was developed in partnership with a customer. Hope you don't mind me mentioning DHL by name. They were, like many of you, trying to decide how they could speed up the electrification of their GSE fleet, but also know with confidence that they had the ability to charge. And that's where the Amp Cart came into play, working with partners like Avris to provide the Ampere Posi chargers. Can charge between 8 and 12 pieces of GSE. We have it deployed, I think, over half a dozen airports. I think there's close to a dozen units in the field right now. And it is helping that mobile charging. In this case, the first version is a diesel generator driven. It can also be powered from facility power to provide additional charging options. And it will ultimately help bridge the gap as we, a lot of the topics we've been discussing and trying to catch up with the infrastructure required to the rapid expansion of GSE. Just, one more point on that. Ground Support Worldwide did a survey earlier this year, and most customers said they wanted to expand their electric fleets, and 71% said the single biggest reason why they weren't moving faster on electric GSE investment was due to lack of charging infrastructure. So we hope in our small part, the Amp Cart can help support that.
Gabe, did you want to come to and comment on the development in that area and the technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Josh alluded to, I think the Amp Cart product's been very successful, right? It's solved immediate problems, right? So that airlines or cargo carriers or ground handlers could deploy electric GSE, and there'll certainly be more of that to come. I know there's been a lot of interest in that product line. We also introduced, sort of in a parallel, unrelated effort, what we call a ramp runner, which is a simpler version of a mobile charging cart that is powered by 400 hertz ground power. So when a gate is not occupied, you can take the GPU cable, plug it into this cart, which is essentially the size of a bag cart, and, recharge 5 pieces of GSE around this cart. So kind of a similar concept, totally different in technology, but again, just trying to bridge that gap in between electric GSE being delivered and permanent charging infrastructure being installed. So I think in general, it's, that concept, I think you're going to see more and more of it. I know I've seen other products being introduced into our industry as well.
Just one thing I've seen in Europe and in China is the use of GPU, so ground power units that are electric more and more, right? Battery powered GPUs that can also be used as power banks, meaning sources of electricity for the EGSE around it. And it's a great way to utilize, mobile assets that are sources of electricity around the aircraft to address that gap. I think that will come in the US too in the years to come.
Thank you, Owen. David, sorry. Marty, sorry.
I can't say enough about, what the AMP cart afforded us at Air Canada with flexibility. It really came in at the appropriate time, and it really did a tremendous job, bridging the gap of what we had taken delivery of, what was not there to support it. But what this afforded us to do has been tremendous. This is to the fact that Air Canada, we're operating with 3 of them now. And it certainly had done its job. And then again, strategically, as we start to see the commissioning of charger availability, again, there's more opportunity because then we can redeploy it and it's being mobile. We can move it to other airports, taking delivery, and then really start to drive culture change, how we operate in other places. It's been a fantastic asset for us.
And it's a great stepping stone, is what we're hearing, but while the infrastructure is under development.
So, Marty, will you only take the AMP cart to airports that the infrastructure is already on its way, or are you looking to maybe deploy that even if there's not infrastructure already going into place?
Yeah, well, again, it's strategically, we are putting it in locations where we are taking delivery of equipment, obviously proportionate to scale. But when we know, we've already got established timelines for availability of charging. But there's a team in the background that are also synchronizing that with, another strategy to move it to locations where, again, equipment is coming and it's going to allow us to do just that. The mobility element of the AMP cart and such is, it's been fantastic strategically.
You guys are pulling that around with an electric tractor, right? Or a diesel tractor.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, Brad, that's an interesting comment. It does sound a little counterproductive to recharge electric vehicles with a diesel generator, right? But, think about it. I drive 2 electric cars. I like to say they're coal powered because ultimately there's a power plant somewhere typically burning something that, provides the electricity. But the beauty of that is it's a single point source of emission, right? So you can monitor it, you can capture data, you can capture, pollutants and handle it correctly as opposed to a bunch of vehicles running around that maybe are not regulated properly, right? So in this case with the AMP card, I've not done the numbers myself, but I'm sure Oshkosh has, but the net reduction in emissions is probably still pretty damn significant, right? You got one big diesel generator running at a really high efficiency, replacing a bunch of small diesel engines that are running at very low efficiency. So the impact should be fairly positive, just on a use case basis.
Yeah, precisely. Depending on what the size of the batteries that you're using or replacing the size of the engine, what the fuel burn was. But we just did a review with a customer last week, and they were replacing 16 pieces of diesel GSE with electric, and they're going to support that fleet with the AMP cart. And we looked at worst case scenario. If it was only being supported by the diesel engine, they were seeing close to 70% reduction in CO2 emissions, trading out 16 diesel engines for one. So it's not a zero emission solution, but it absolutely is a huge step in the right direction.
Thank you. What impact did the panel see if we're saying that we're moving towards a kind of a mixed power source, mixed fleet model in the future of electric, hydrogen, other power sources? What impact will that have on ownership patterns amongst ground handlers, operators? Are we going to see, good news for Matt and Exceed, more of a shift to leasing models because there'll be such variability and change?
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think from a ground handling perspective, we prefer to own our equipment. So I'm not sure. Sorry about that. Short-term needs, absolutely. We'll reach out. but the shift will remain. I think long-term ownership is the key. And the useful life of electric equipment seems like it's going to outpace ICE equipment. So it looks like it's definitely going to support the case.
So no major shift, do you think, in financing models as a result? No, certainly not Swissport.
Not with us.
None. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Another question's come in related to glycol. So of the manufacturers on the panel that will be there with glycol heating temps times via an electric platform, do you believe it will surpass that of a diesel offering? Brad?
I think it's too early to tell. I think we're still reviewing that. I don't know if it'll surpass where we are now, but we'll see.
Yeah, we're not to a point where we're talking about the specific specs of the electric de-icer at this time, but we'll keep you posted.
I mean, it's a good question. That'll be something we'll have to figure out and have that data, because that'll be certainly a question we get asked when we get there.
Excellent. Thank you. Can the panel comment on potential safety concerns on both lithium batteries and hydrogen?
I could talk a little about batteries. I don't have a lot of experience with hydrogen, but so there's absolutely safety risk with batteries, right? I mean, if no different with a fuel tank, right? I mean, a battery is a fuel tank. It stores electrons or energy instead of gasoline or diesel, and it can go bad, right? Luckily, it doesn't happen very often. We're not dealing with this on a daily basis, but I think there's from the battery manufacturer's perspective, there's a lot of effort by these good quality manufacturers put into safety features, to meeting certain certifications like UL standards for battery manufacturing. There's a lot of effort put into the controls of the batteries to limit detrimental conditions like over discharge and overcharge. That's typically when things can go really wrong. So I think the design of the product is key, right? You can design a very, very safe lithium battery, just like you can with an internal combustion vehicle. And operation is key. So that comes with education. So, we spend a lot of time educating the maintenance teams and the operations teams about these risks and then what to do if something does go wrong. But most of it is about prevention. And there's quite a bit of effort being put into that. There's SAE committees focused on it. There's NFPA regulations being written around it. So it's obviously, again, like I said earlier, we're a small piece of the battery world. So we're going to inherit a lot of the knowledge from the overall battery community that is developing these standards and should make us all safer.
Thank you, Gabe. Other comments? Yeah,
I could talk a little bit to the hydrogen safety side, given that we have the fill station that we're getting some experience with. It's been had its first charge of hydrogen already for testing purposes, and I'd say I wouldn't say it's more or less safe than conventional fuels. It just needs to be handled differently. At the end of the day, in open air situations, if there's a leak, it can actually be more safe in the fact that hydrogen rises and it disperses very quickly. So, as long as it's a dispersion that's below combustion concentrations and there's no source to ignite it, it goes into the air and it's completely non-toxic and you're fine. Whereas with a fuel spill, you've got this pool on the ground that you have to deal with and contain and clean up, and potentially also toxics in the soil. Now, if it's a covered situation, then you have a different situation, but it can be mitigated by having sensors to make sure that any leaks, if they come up against the ceiling, that they're it's not pooling at a high point somewhere. That would be a safety concern. But again, with sensors, pressure detection, whatnot, it's all quite manageable.
Thank you. And I'll ask David and Marty, is that in terms of lithium? Perhaps is this something that you're very much looking at as safety training across operators, users?
Yeah, I mean, Air Canada, we're safety first and always. So it's embedded in anything that we do. So when we start, when we were getting into electrification, again, there's a lot of research, and I take great comfort in those who are supporting us. When you see standards being applied to manufacturing, the safe handling. Even in Canada, there's an element of this where you start talking high voltage EV, it's regulated. These are all things that give us a great sense of comfort around safety.
Agreed on safety first all the way through. And that's why I think we're a little bit risk averse to the lithium at Swissport. As Gabe mentioned earlier, lead acid is very mature. It seems to work just fine. Opportunity charge is there. And if you do that, you take care of it. So far, that's the direction we're going to continue to go.
Any other panel?
Yeah, I think too, from a manufacturer standpoint, you come up here, you talk product. I think we miss a lot about the value add we all have when we look at our factories, and we spend a lot of time continuously training the folks that are building the equipment and working on the equipment and our field tech. So it's number one for us, safety, but also just making sure they understand the technology and the risks out there, because it's always changing.
Thank you. We've got 7-8 minutes left, ladies and gents. If you've got any final questions, then please put them through on the app, or you can raise your hand just to make sure we get through all the audience questions this afternoon. I just wanted to, I guess there's a sort of summary perspective from the panel. Just wanted to ask you to outline how you see the ramp changing here in the Americas market over the next 10, 15 years, and what it will look like, how different it will look, and the power sources we'll see of the ramp of, say, 2035.
I'm surprised we haven't talked autonomous. I think that's still in the conversation. I think it's going to take a while before we get there. Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of things on the ramp change. Maybe it's going to happen with how safely and how quickly we get that aircraft or support the team that's turning that aircraft around. Yeah, you're always going to see, I think we're at a point where you're going to see innovation. You're going to see something new every year. I think that something like the ramp cart, something going into autonomous, there's always going to be something coming up, and it's going to come up pretty quick. How it looks in 10 years, I think you're going to see charger infrastructure catch up, be a little cleaner, and hopefully a lot smoother.
Thanks, Brad. Marty?
I think we're going to see, tremendous change over the years. And I'm certainly, an advocate for just that, for change. Doing more with less, safer, removing a whole lot of what could be seen as the human factor in unfortunate incidents, accidents, decongesting some of the ramp space, but really giving our people the best that we can get them to perform their functions. But all that to say, I see tremendous change coming in years to come. Autonomous would be another, great example of what that could look like. Remote controlled, the likes of the Moto Talk. I mean, these are all big, significant game changers in the market.
Josh?
Yeah, from an Oshkosh perspective, we just continue to look to our market, our customers, and look to see what they define as success. And oftentimes that means operator safety. It means increased efficiency and reduced cost. And then ultimately they want a highly reliable piece of equipment. So we'll continue to focus on innovations that help in those three areas.
Gabe?
Electric, right? I mean, that's what we're all talking about. There's going to be much more electric equipment, but I think it's going to be different in a few ways. I'm a big believer in automotive charging technology making its way onto airport ramps. It's been mentioned a couple times today, but as fleet vehicles start driving around that are electric, you're going to need a way to charge them. And why can't the same charger that charges that vehicle, which is a standard, right, that we all can live by, why can't that also charge GSE, right? I think that is the future for the electrification efforts that are going forward. It's going to take some time because there's a lot of legacy equipment that you can't just abandon. But I think you'll start to see chargers very soon that have both capabilities. And then I think eventually you'll see a trend towards the automotive standard as the charger of choice for airports.
David, what does a Swissport fleet look like in 2035? Big question.
I'd say it'll be half electric by then, hopefully, from motorized side. But I think it'll be a safer ramp. I think that at the end of the day, the innovations that are taking place from a user perspective are leaps and bounds from where we were 10 years ago. And if we can get more of an electric fleet, I think that gives us more controls to engineer out some of the risk until we get to potentially an autonomous ramp.
Thank you. Owen?
I think one typically underestimates what can be achieved over 10 years and overestimates what can be achieved over 1 year. So I think 10 years from now, I think all of this is going to be happening. Much fewer people on the ramp, much more automation, much safer environment, much more activity, that automation will enable. So it's very exciting, I think. And as OEMs, we obviously are totally committed to push further innovations in a safe way and work with the whole community here to make that a reality. But very, very optimistic about that change.
Thank you. Todd?
Pretty much everything that's been said. Yeah.
Trouble of going towards the end.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. But I might be a bit of an outlier in terms of how bullish I am on hydrogen. I do think It's not the magic bullet, but it does have a place in the mix, and I think it will be in the mix. And electrification, SAF, it's all going to be out there. And it's going to be much greener and also safer apron.
And at Toronto Pearson, at other airports, the infrastructure will have moved on, right?
Yes,
absolutely. Excellent news for the rest of the panel.
I'd say that if you want to learn more about how GSE is going to change in the next 10 years, you should listen to the GSE podcast, where we cover all of these topics, from automation to electrification. I mean, you can, in telematics, you can get all of it on the GSE podcast. So I think,
we didn't rehearse that at all.
I'm going to continue having those conversations with people in the industry so they can really learn about what's coming down the pipeline.
No, thank you. And also say, also be delighted to welcome all of the audience to find out more at GSE Expo Europe, which is happening in Lisbon. You see on the slide there, 17th to 19th of September, all manufacturers in the room will be there working with the IMA team, with Jen and the team. And the issues that we covered during this discussion, electrification, hydrogen, biofuels, autonomous vehicles, safety, that will all be under the microscope there, and there'll be equipment demos, and you guys will be showing off the latest solutions. So make a note of the dates, and the story's going to run, isn't it?
Yeah, Max and I have to plug some stuff at the end, right? So
yeah, I also have to finish in under an hour because I don't want to give you too much editing to do, Matt. After this,
Thank you, I appreciate that.
On the cutting room floor. But ladies and gents, we really appreciate all your questions that have come in and your engagement in the discussion. Thank you very much. Please join me in giving our panel a big round of applause. Thank you. And I can't help my last question to put Matt on the spot. And when might the audience be listening to this one in an episode of the show? Yeah, no pressure.
It's a great question. I'll get this out next week so everybody can really enjoy listening to this all over again next week.
And we'll send a link to you and make sure you know when it is released. And enjoy the listen. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the GSE Podcast. We hope you found it informative and engaging. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with your colleagues and peers in the ground support equipment community. Your support is invaluable to us. We'd appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review our podcast. Your feedback not only encourages us, but also helps expand our reach within the GSE community. Keep an eye out for more episodes as we continue to explore the dynamic world of ground operations, bringing you the latest trends, insights, and stories from the industry. Thank you for listening to the GSE Podcast. Until we meet again, stay grounded and keep pushing forward.